What's up, guys? How's it going? I'm back again with another video, this time about choosing your weapon, and your weapon being your D.A.W. or your D.A.W. As they're called. And a D.A.W. or D.A.W. is a digital audio workstation. And what you can use this for are a numerous of things. So like if you're looking to record vocals or, dialogue or a podcast, if you're looking to record music from your instrument or create music digitally, if you're looking for plugins or you're trying to create sound effects and you need to record like clapping sounds or punching jello or something, or if you're looking to even compose live music or have something recorded to present with an orchestra, as I did once. A D.A.W. can do everything from recording to editing, audio files, to rearranging, filtering, adding, subtracting. They take care of everything you need to do audio and music wise. So as a creative software, what are you using it for? I think that's the first thing you want to ask yourself. If you're using it to record your voice as a singer or a I just said it too. Dang it. I lost it. Voice actor. Wow. Then, you want to use something, in my opinion, you want to use something that's quick. You want to use something that's quick, that's easy to use, simplified UI. Something that you can just open up, jump in, start recording, minimal effort, and get it going and not have any problems. If you're using something for music, you want to get the most bang for your buck, which I think is the thing that a lot of people want. And you don't have to pay for it. You can even, time is money also. So, whether if it's free or it's paid, you want to get the most uses out of it as you can. And you want something that's going to constantly update to try to get you to where your end goal is. So using myself as an example, my music is here on my YouTube channel if you want to check it out. My older music is not here on YouTube, unfortunately. I've been trying to get it onto YouTube, but it's kind of hard. I started off with GarageBand, and maybe some of you have heard it, maybe heard of it. Sorry, maybe some of you have not. GarageBand is kind of old. It's about 16 years old, as you can see over here. It was released back in January of 2004, but to be honest, I think it came out actually around 2001 because it was a test software that was for the Mac, for Mac computers, and it came with almost all Mac computers. There was this disc. It was kind of like, I think it was called like Essentials or something like that. I don't remember. Anyway, there was this extra disc that came with Windows when you bought like a new computer or you bought the OS. And it came with like iPhoto, iMovie, all those softwares, and it also came with GarageBand. And all this stuff was free. So back then I was playing around with it, working on music, and it did the job. I released, I guess you could say semi-officially, I released about 30 tracks. Only about 8 of them have survived from the MySpace music days. And this is my actual page. I'm surprised it's still up, but I know somebody revived, a bunch of musicians revived MySpace for music. But anyway, so that's where I started, and all these tracks that are here on my MySpace music page are from GarageBand. GarageBand used to be free, as I was saying. It's no longer free, mostly because of Soulja Boy. Not like that's anything bad, but Soulja Boy wanted to prove that you didn't need Pro Tools or Logic. Pro Tools has been around since 1989, and for a lot of older people in the music industry, it's kind of like the only software that you can use if you want to be considered a real professional, in air quotes, real professional music producer or songwriter or composer. Like, you had to use Pro Tools in order to be taken seriously. So Soulja Boy set out to prove them wrong, and I think he went platinum think went platinum 3 or 4 times or something, and they still didn't take him serious. But Apple took him serious, and they were like, "Ha, well, since you've proved that we've got award-winning software, we're gonna make people pay for it." It happens. Anyway, so from GarageBand, I learned about a lot. You know, I learned it in school and I learned it at home. YouTube wasn't a thing back then. It wasn't, you know, like people weren't doing like big time tutorials or anything. So you had to learn as you went. And for me, being musically gifted and learning by ear, for me, it made things a lot easier for me, where I had inspiration, I had a sound, I had a keyboard, a digital piano, I had my electric violin and my electric guitar. I would just record and then go from there. So for me, GarageBand was great. And it also pulled up notes as if it was sheet music, so you could print that out and present it to a musician, which I thought at the time was really awesome. I don't think it has it anymore, but that was something. Oh, iLife, there we go. It was part of the iLife suite. I just saw it. It caught my eye. It was a really good software to start off with. But when I wanted to take music a little more serious, I had to upgrade my software, and I had to upgrade my hardware as well. So upgrading my hardware first led me to Windows, and I no longer was using Mac. GarageBand is only for Macs, and that's where it made it a little difficult to, you know, move forward. So I had to learn something completely new. Thanks to Trey Deuce out in New York, I was exposed to Fruity Loops, or FL Studio. So now it's FL Studio, but at the time it was Fruity Loops. So when I got back home after working with him and his group in New York and helping them with their music, I needed something similar because I really liked how Fruity Loops was set up. I liked the UI. I liked how simple it was. I liked how it was easy to use. And the first thing that came up was LMMS. LMMS, I believe, stands for Linux Multimedia Studio or software, something like that. Either way, it's free. So what it is it's an older version of Fruity Loops that was modified and is still updated even now. It works across all platforms, so Windows, Mac OS, Linux. I've seen videos of it working on Ubuntu and other operating systems. It's just a free FL Studio that has its limitations. And I want to say it has its limitations because it is free. You know, it is kind of a modified version of an old Fruity Loops software that's outdated. So, you know, even though it's being updated all the time, it still has its limitations. But if you're using it for like voiceover work or just voice work in general, just audio, you're not trying to make music off of it, I say it's really good. If you're using it for music, you're going to hit limitations with sound quality, and that was one of my biggest issues with it. Because once you start to get more and more into being a music creative, you start to notice sound quality is a big thing. And back when I was using it, they had a limitation on voices. If you're not familiar with that term in music production, voices are the number of channels that you have per, let's say, per instrument or sound effect or filter. I think there's a picture I can show. And because of that, they had a limitation on voices at the time where it could only handle about 24 voices, I believe. Yeah. So like if you see over here on the right side, it'll show like everything listed. And those number of voices, once you went over 24 voices or 24 channels of audio, it started to pull on your processor really heavily, which is kind of what got me into learning about making computers and building computers, because I wanted to not have that as a limitation to where it would make the audio sound really crunchy and really bad and distorted. So yeah, that was a problem for me. I don't know if they still have that problem, but for me, it was a good stepping stone. It eventually led for me going into FL Studio. And of course, I always use myself as an example just to give you guys like, you know, a thought process into what I looked for. Maybe it may help you out, maybe it may not. But the reason why I went into FL Studio from LMMS is because it was a similar UI. They open up really fast. And with FL Studio, they have a lot to offer. So even though it's not free, you know, it doesn't have any limitations, which is kind of the thing. Plus, they're always updating their software with plugins. Like they're always adding in new plugins. They're always giving you free stuff, and you only pay once. That's the thing that got me. A couple friends and colleagues of mine, I saw them using like Pro Tools or Logic, or I think it was something else called Synapse. I think it was another software. And every time an update came out, they had to pay full price for that new version, even if it was just like a new drum, you know, a new drum recording, or some new samples, or maybe it was a new filter, or you know, they changed the UI, or they made the settings simpler to use. You would have to pay full price for a new version of the software that you already own, and I thought that was garbage. So that was one of my deciding factors for FL Studio. FL Studio constantly updates based off of community feedback. And when they add in stuff for free. And then they'll also tell you what they're adding in paid. ImageLine has been really good on that. And that's one thing that I've loved about them. You can use them with Windows or Mac OS. So either side you can use. You can also use it on mobile for Android and iPhones. They have software for when you're on the go, and you can transfer it to your computer when you get home, or your laptop, or wherever. So that way you have something that you can like start working on and then transfer over when you think, you know, you want to do more. That accessibility to me stood out more than anyone else. It seemed like they were really active in trying to set the bar instead of just staying where they were. You know, they're trying to innovate themselves, they're trying to move forward, they're trying to get the music industry into a better place as far as like people who want to record, whether, you know, you're a voice actor or you're a singer, you're a songwriter, you're a musician, you're a composer, you're a producer, it doesn't matter. They're trying to make it so that you don't have to pay for outside plugins. You can just use what they have built in. And I really appreciate that they try to do that. But moving into FL Studio, that's what I use now. That's what I make all my music with now. The sound quality was a lot better, which was the first thing I noticed when I switched over from LMMS to FL Studio. Was the sound quality was better. And I had, even though I had the same options with VSTs and plugins and filters and all this other stuff, all this cool stuff for sound design and, you know, making stuff happen, I didn't really need all the outside stuff anymore. And I stopped using the outside stuff. I had like sound libraries and filters and all this other stuff that was taking up like almost 10 gigs on a hard drive. Actually, no, it was more than that. I said 10 gigs. I'm sorry. It was taking up about 700 gigs of just audio from like sound design, because I used to work in the game industry. So from sound design to sound, like just little things to like bigger things, to my own samples that I made of my own, like of my own ideas, or like maybe something I was working on that I never finished. Like almost 700 gigs of audio I didn't need anymore because I had FL Studio. Like I could just make it, create it, save it, or it came with something built in that made it easier to recreate sounds or to create new sounds. So for game sound design, it made things easier for me using FL Studio than some other softwares. And even some softwares that the companies preferred that we used. I can't remember what some of them were. I could pull them up, but because I had worked in FL Studio and I already knew what I wanted, I could just go home, make that sound that I exactly wanted, that I probably could have done, which would have took me like 4 hours with their software. I could do it in like literally a minute because I already knew where everything was, and just make it, transfer it over to their software, upload it using their software, make some tweaks, maybe compress it a little bit more because of file size, and it was ready to go. So for me, a lot of things are similar to FL Studio, but just the fact that it was easy to use and it didn't take multiple classes, or like with Pro Tools, you got to pay like almost $100 at Sam Ash or Guitar Center for a class on a section of Pro Tools or Logic Pro. Like, that's ridiculous. And they also put out their own update videos, which also helped me out, because whenever they change something and they make an update, they release their own YouTube video on their own channel. I know a lot of other companies are doing it now, but when they do it, they literally tell you what's going on. Like, this is what we added. This was based off of community feedback. This is something you guys wanted, which makes sense to us too. Like, they're honest. So I really like that. And they show you how to use the new software in their videos. But not getting distracted. For me, FL Studio made things a lot more easier. And when I had to present music to a live orchestra for the first time, which was something that I was very excited about, FL Studio made that really easy to do. So I made an MP3, sent it to them. They were like, oh, cool, we can make that. And then I also sent them sheet music using another free software. And they were like, we didn't need the sheet music, but thank you. All we need to know is what it sounded like. And like I said, FL Studio made that really easy for me. And like I said, with other situations like in the gaming industry, that made things really easy for me also. So no matter what you're doing, like I said before, whether you're recording your voice, whether it's for dialogue or podcast, or, singing, or doing things for songwriting or composition or producing, mixing and mastering, it doesn't matter, sound design. For me, I've found that FL Studio was worth it in the long run, where every time they come out with something new, or they update something and make something easier to use, or give me another option to use something, it turned into inspiration. And I get more uses out of FL Studio every update than I would from something else. I get more inspiration, I get more motivation, I get more passion. And that's something that, like I said earlier, gives you more bang for your buck, more uses for the amount of money you spent. I would say that the amount that I spent on FL Studio, I wouldn't get that same type of quality with another D.A.W. because of my personal experience and what I've done and what I've used it for. But the same could be said for a free D.A.W. depending on what I'm using it for. So know what you're using it for would be my main tip, and how much are you going to use it, or for how long do you need it? I know a lot of voice actors. That's why I use voice actors as an example, because if I was a voice actor and I was, making audio tracks for a show or a movie or a sound effect or something, and I was at home and they just needed me to do like some voiceovers, some recordings, I wouldn't necessarily pay $100+ for software, or 70 or 50 or something. I'd go with something free, because it's accessible. It's right there. I'm just recording my voice. I could even use my phone. But if I want to make edits to it, let's say if they need me to sound like a robot or something, I need to download a filter, or I need to do some tweaking or some sound design to get my voice the right way that sounds right to me, or the way that they want it to sound. And you can easily do that with some free software, with a free plugin from somewhere, and bam, you're done. Or a trial version of some software with a filter. You don't have to really go for something paid, but if you're going for something more long term, where you're going to be branching out, like I did, for example, I went from creating my own personal music that was like 2 to 4 minutes long. I think one of them is even like 5 minutes. I went from making music that I thought was good for me, just for me. It was stuff that I wanted to listen to, and finding an audience, to realizing that, hey, I have an audience. I should probably give them better sound quality. To me, it didn't sound good, even though to them, everyone that reviewed my music said it sounded great. They loved the sound of it. They loved the feel. They loved the flow. They loved the pacing. To them, the sound quality didn't bother them, but it bothered me. So I was like, I want to give them something higher quality, and definitely not MP3, which compresses your music and kind of makes it sound like crap every so often. Getting into that, I was like, how am I going to give them a better quality of sound? Well, I need to upgrade my software. So I went to LMMS, which was a good starting point, but eventually it had its limitations based off what I was trying to do. I was trying to do bigger, grander sounds, more complex sounding music, because that's my style. At the time, that was my style. And using 75 voices on one track was beyond the limitations at the time of LMMS. So now getting into FL Studio and making that same music, my quality is a lot better. My mixing and mastering is a lot better because I've learned how to mix and master on FL Studio, to the point where I can't even hire someone to make my music sound professional, because it already sounds professional. It already sounds like it's what do they call it, radio ready, quote, just from learning and expanding and being in love with what I do, which is create music. So across the board, no matter what you're using, you want to use something that's going to accommodate to your needs and to your likeness and be there for you and be ready for you. So when picking your D.A.W, experiment with everything. Watch videos, read reviews. If they have a trial, try it out. If they have like a 10-day trial, watch some YouTube videos and see what you can do. Some D.A.Ws in their trial, they'll let you export your creations. Some of them won't. So some of them you'll be able to create it and save it. Then you got to pay for it to export it. Other ones will be like, hey, you can export it, but in order to use certain plugins, you have to pay for them. But then you can use your own free downloaded plugins. So, experiment with everything, and see what you like. Like I said, the oldest software that's out there is, I think, Pro Tools from 1989. And then you have newer stuff like Reaper, Ableton. I know a lot of DJs use Ableton, Reaper, and Audacity. But experiment with everything. Find something that works for you, something that's easy for you to use, something that's easy for you to understand, something that makes sense with how you picture making your music or your audio or your projects. Find something, if you're a musician, a big tip for musicians, if you're looking for something, make sure the response time is fast enough. It's hard for me to use my keyboard or my electric violin with FL Studio because there is a lag when recording live directly through the D.A.W. So, that's something you want to look into. How's the recording time? How's the response time? If I press down on a key on my piano, will it instantly record it, or will it record it, like 0.4 seconds late? Which then throws off your timing, and then you have to go in and edit it, all that stuff. Anyway, figure out how much time it takes you to use it, because time is money, and then figure out if it's best for you. If it clicks with you and you instantly know how to use it and you're like, man, I like this. This is what I want to use. Go for it. If not, you have plenty of other options. All right. So I hope this video helped. I hope I didn't waffle too long and just ramble, but use what's best for you, and experiment with everything. Something that I will share with you at the end of this video, if you're still here. FL Studio to me is kind of personal. whenever I go to big conventions with composers, or whenever I'm at gatherings or some event or something, and people are sharing their music, or people are listening to everyone else's music and giving critiques or something like that, I always get questions about my music and how I make it. And like I said, this is a bonus story if you're still around, but at a couple conventions, and I've gotten used to it now, when I'm in the music industry or I'm in the gaming industry, it's pretty much dominated by Macs, like almost dominated by Macs. You'll see everyone in a convention with their MacBook Pros and their MacBook Airs with different types of gaming stickers all over the Apple logo and stuff like that. And I don't use a Mac. So whenever I get approached or whenever my music gets critiqued, which I always submit it for like mixing and mastering critique or just overall sound critiques or stuff like that, because I like to hear what other people think about my music. I always get questioned like, what type of D.A.W do you use? Do you use Pro Tools or Logic or Reaper? And this has been in the past like 10 years, people started saying Reaper, and I'm like, no, I use FL Studio. And they look at me like I'm crazy, and they're like, holy crap, you can make music with FL Studio? I kid you not. I've gotten that so many times. At first I was insulted, and then eventually I just started laughing. But there are people out there who don't know what FL Studio is, or they know it from it being called Fruity Loops and it being known as a beat maker, because that was kind of like what it was known for a very long time. Drake has been using FL Studio or Fruity Loops for a very long time, and so it was known as just kind of like a beat machine almost, or like a simplified at-home beat maker for rappers or for hip-hop artists. And people don't take it serious, and there's a lot of amazing things you can do with FL Studio. But back to the story. So after getting that a lot, one of my mentors did that when I was at a convention. She became my mentor through the mentorship program that they had there. And she listened to my music, and she was like, your music is really good. I would like to use it for a couple games, if you'd want to work with me, or if I could just call on you to like use a track, here or there in a couple video games. And when she asked me and I said FL Studio, she was like, I haven't heard of that before. When did it come out? And I'm like, oh, it came out a long time ago, like in the late 90s. It came out, of course, officially in 97, but yeah, like it's been around for a long time. She was like, oh, this sounds really good. I thought you would have used Pro Tools or Logic. And I was like, no. I just use FL Studio. It's really good. And so I pulled out my laptop to show her the exact song she was listening to. I wanted to show her like the process of how I made it, because she was interested in knowing. And when I pulled out my laptop at the time, I was using a Sony Vaio. I was the only person there I was the only person there not using a MacBook. Everyone turned around and looked at me like, the heck? What is that? What kind of laptop is that? You can make music on that? Oh my goodness. What is this thing? Like, they were looking at it like it was complete foreign tech. Like I'm dead serious. I felt so awkward getting this type of attention for something so basic as a Sony laptop. And it was a Sony Vaio that was, I think it was like the A series that was made for making music. So I hadn't started building my own computers at that time, but they were all looking at me like I'm crazy. And I had a Windows laptop also. I mean, not a laptop. Well, it was this Vaio was Windows, but a tablet that I was using at the time that was Windows also had Windows 10 on it. But no, Windows 7. Sorry, it had Windows 7 on it. They were looking at me like I was crazy, and even the Windows rep looked at me like I was crazy. He was like, "Wow, there's someone here using Windows and not Mac." But I started to draw a crowd, and they were looking at how I was making my music. And as they saw how, I was laying out my audio, my filters, I was doing my mixing and mastering, I was doing my sound design and my sound editing, like everything that they were looking at, they were completely amazed by, because all they knew was Pro Tools and Logic. Buy a Mac, put Pro Tools and Logic on it, and you're done. Make music. So after feeling insulted, actually, for a couple years, because I kept hearing the same responses, they were just like, wow, how do you do this? And when I told them, I only brought my laptop with me for, doing this, for the the critique, and to exchange information and stuff like that with my tablet and my laptop. I was like, but at home, I used the computer that I created. And they're like, you created a computer? You built your own computer? That's possible? You can make music off of something that's not a MacBook? And I kid you not, that was actually said by multiple people in the crowd. So using your D.A.W, you will definitely want to make sure that your D.A.W fits you. Like when I started to explain to them why I use FL Studio and not Pro Tools or Logic Pro, it made sense to them. And a lot of them started switching to Reaper, which is why I brought up Reaper earlier. Because Reaper has a lot of the same things that FL Studio had. It was quick to open. It didn't take 30 minutes to an hour like Pro Tools at the time. It was easy to use. The UI was simplified. User interface, like I say UI in case you don't know. The user interface was very simplified. It was easy to learn. Didn't take 30 minutes. Simple, simple to use, simple to get the job done. You can plug in whatever you need to. You can use whatever filters you need to. You can do whatever you need to do. And you still get the same quality of work done at the end of the day. And even now, I still use FL Studio because of all those reasons. And also to still shock people whenever I go out to conventions for other composers or in the gaming industry or in the music industry. Even though you may think FL Studio, if you watch videos, you're like, oh my God, everybody uses FL Studio, blah, blah, blah. But there's still so many people who have never even heard of it in the music industry. It's ridiculous. They don't even know it exists. But using it lets you know that you know what you're doing. Don't follow a trend when it comes to being a creative in any field. If everybody's using something because it's the industry standard and you like something that's completely not the industry standard, but it gets the job done, and it gets the job done on a level that is professional to where, people can't tell the difference. A tool is a tool. A weapon is a weapon. As long as you get the job done at the end of the day, that's what matters. Whether if it's art or it's music, doesn't matter. Being a creative, you have so many options nowadays. Use those options. All right. So that's it for me. That's the end of my story. Anyway, I'll see you guys in the next video. Sorry for making this pretty long. I know it was like 30 minutes, but I just wanted to get that out. And yeah. Good luck. Peace.